could and should do that. Yeah, and it's not only about Tibet. It's more so there is also a very one-sided reporting on China in general that creates a certain image that is quite distant from reality and very, of course, very political, out of political means. And it's not only about China, it's generally also many other different topics, countries in Western media are shown in a very specific way that is that's not very close to reality, but more to create a certain narrative. And in terms of Tibet, there is this narrative that, of course, that the Tibetans are very oppressed by the Chinese government, and they don't have like this. They're lacking their autonomy to express their religion and their way of life, and these progresses, for example, are not even really mentioned. Maybe they are mentioned, but then very progress in China in general. 800 million people out of poverty got out of poverty. This is also barely mentioned in mainstream media, if mentioned at all. And
to do with Western narrative, I think especially to do with Tibet, they are doing like a myth-making.
Yeah.
I mean, myth-making is pretty important for the Western media concerning Tibet, but why? Why do they do that?
This my assumption, and we can of course discuss this, is that
if you like joining him by
can always get some support, yes. No, but that of course media, I would say, is in the West is very in a certain control of like who influences the media in a we are like there's so many. I sometimes think about, okay, why is the media reporting this way, leaving out information, just copying maybe what media from USA says without fact checking or anything. And this we can discuss. It is like a huge topic, but what they are shown is in conflict with the facts. And I would now think that, of course, what CIA already tried in the 50s to separate Tibet from China for a reason, for example, to weaken China because they see China as a enemy, basically, and this still goes on, ignoring, of course, you need to the people in the West or in Europe. They, of course, like I have never been to China at all, or basically Asia for that matter. So I can only see what is happening here. So I need the media to tell me what is going on. And so you need to, we see it in other countries that it's always like a certain method to the intervention politics of the US, of CIA, that if you want to topple a regime or like go to war, you need the support of your people in your country, or they will revolt.
I guess concerning China, Tibet is a story to tell, right? It's a huge story to tell, sure. And what about future media? Future media objectivity should depend on transparency, or plural sourcing, I think, right? Not just one source giving the final word, and also evidence-based contestation. But what's happening nowadays? Do you think the story of like myth-making Tibet can go on? I doubt. I mean, I think it will continue because it's like what you said. You get the knowledge about China, about Tibet through media here, Western media, without being able to see yourself with your own eyes, right? Doing some field work. Then how can you correct or maybe biased and even wrong view on this region? So still the question comes back to media, Western media. What can, in your opinion, what can you still do as Western media to do with transparency, objectivity?
Of course, there is some books, for example, and we see and also of course the media itself can. Well, we maybe have to look more to independent media. As for now, I think the mainstream media is very much one-sided, and as things are, as they don't maybe yeah, we can discuss this more, that the media, the way they report, has a certain, that it represents a certain interest of people that want to have the majority of people have a certain image of Tibet now. It's not only Tibet, there is also many tales and myths about China in general. And not just China, as I said, there's also about Russia and African countries and South American, but for example, it is also that media with, of course, let's say YouTube and Instagram, they are owned by American billionaires. But we see now, for example, well, there used to be times where we would have movies like 7 Years in Tibet, where Nazi Hara is played by Brad Pitt, and the Chinese communists are evil, and the Tibetans are so, they're so, not oppressed at all and not slaves. And but for example, as a what was a point for me where there is this streamer, I Show Speed, is a very loud American young man, but what he did, he traveled to China and he just live streamed every day. He was in China for 1 week, every day a different city. He was in Shanghai, then Beijing, he was in Chongqing and in Hong Kong, and every day 6-8 hours live stream showing how the city really works.
What's his name?
His name is I Show Speed. Yeah, he's a very young African American streamer, very high energy, very loud, and his view base is very young, but he dismantles the propaganda, and he hasn't been to Tibet. But this was eye-opening for many people, that in general I think now, especially for young people on the internet, on Instagram, TikTok, there is kind of like a rise in a positive liking of China. There's memes developing, and there's still, I would say, probably the majority, if you go to very mainstream internet forums, groups, websites, there is still lots of discontent, they think that all this like myths.
But social media is
it's changing.
it's
Yeah.
changing, yeah.
So,
it's a good channel,
and-
actually, a platform to use different voices to see some more truth through that.
But of course, those who own this social media in the West, they would not like this. But we will see where this goes. But it's we will see.
I would say media will remain vulnerable to geopolitical instrumentalization if there's nothing dramatic happens through even some channel or breaking some narratives.
And we see now more and more also how scholars and authors get sanctioned by the EU Commission.
Yes.
Not about China, but other topics that are they are falling apart, and they're getting more desperate to keep up this narrative with more authoritarian means.
Hear that.